both Android and iOS is running now. Now we need to log in first. So I'm gonna log in from both side. Let's use Furkan at gmail.com. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Submit. Go back. Gmail.com. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Submit. Go back. Now we have both done. Now let me just add one item from Android. I'm gonna say my first note from Android. Right now when I save it, you'll see that it's basically added. And now let me just sync it from the iOS side to see if we can get that. Now when I sync it, you'll see I get that note. Now let me add one from iOS side and say my first note from iOS. Okay, and once we do that, we save that. Let me sync it, but for this I'm not going to sync it like this way. I'm going to close this and I'm going to add this, like reload it, and this time you can see that I got the notes from both Android and iOS. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this is going to be the next part of our quick notes app series. In this video we are going to implement the sync functionality, which means that we will be syncing the local notes with the server, and this way user like who is logged in for multiple devices will have the updated notes every time. So yeah, so let's just implement that. But before that, there are certain things that I would like to discuss before actually implementing the code. So if we go to the backend code, I'm sure you must be running that at this point. And inside that, if we go to the, what is the name, it should be sync service. Okay, so this is basically a sync service, and over here you can see that like if you go to the response section for that, in the response you will see that we have now as a string, which is basically the time at which the sync was done. Then we have the applied. These are basically strings or IDs of the nodes that basically are added, or whatever changes that we've done from the client side are basically done. Then we have some conflicts, which is basically those nodes that have some sort of change. It can be any change in anything, like maybe a node gets deleted or something like that. So basically a conflicted change with server and client. And third one are the changes that comes from the server side. So let's say if I add some change from one user, from one ID, and then so let's say I add some change from one device, and then the next device will get these kind of changes as well. Okay, so basically that's something we are gonna do. It's going to be very simple. We just need to understand how the thing is going to work. So we might have to change a little bit of the databases and all that in the app. So yeah, that's something we might have to do. But other than that, I think we should be like it should be very simple thing. So the first thing is that we need to change this node database table to something different. Like for example, if you go to the server side, and let me just try open that note.kd file. Now over here you can see that first thing, the id is changed into a uuid. That's one thing. Along with that, it has a is deleted and updated add functionality as well, which is required for client side. And there is one more thing that we need locally, and that is basically a signal which will tell us if the item or if the node that we've created is basically synced with the server or not. So basically with some sort of a flag. Okay, so yeah, that's something we are gonna do. So I'll go back to over here, and over here in the nodes class, like I said, the first thing we need to do is basically this auto generation. We don't need that. Instead, we are gonna do is we are gonna create a uuid random dot to string. Okay, so basically we need to do that. So and this should be string rather than the uuid. Now this is supposed to be an experimental uuid api, so let's just use that. Title and description are the one, and then other than these these are some values that we need, like the is deleted functionality, the is updated, is dirty. This is the one. This is basically the parameter that we'll be using to tell the system if we should be syncing it with server or not. Like if it's dirty, which means that it needs to be synced with the server. If not, it means that it's already synced and it's basically similar to what we have on server. Okay, so that is the is dirty flag that we are gonna do, and I think that's pretty much what we have or what we should be doing. The second thing is basically there's one more thing, and that we are gonna do is that is one more entity or one more table that we are gonna create, and that is going to be a table that will kind of keep the last sync status. Okay, so like the when was the last sync done, and if there is any sync that is underway. So these are the things that we are gonna do with that. So I'm gonna say data class sync metadata, and it is basically just keeping the last sync timestamp. So this will basically this table will help us, just keeping a track of the syncs that we are doing and the last timestamp or the last values along with that. Okay, now since we created these changes, we need to update our database file as well. So we are going to do get over here. Right now it's just node.class. Along with that, we'll also be using sync metadata dot sync metadata class as well for this. And we also need a DAO. That a node DAO is just very straightforward. We need to add so many other functionalities, for example deleting all nodes. I have basically copied all these DAO functionality that I have that I'm like we might be using. So let me just update all that. Okay. Now over here, when you go get into this is basically the one that is basically now going to check if it's deleted is zero, which means that if the deleted is false, this means that will be showing it. And along with that, get all nodes. So yeah, then we have a next query that basically get the node by id, and then we have an insert node for single, insert node for multiple, update node for one. Then we have a delete node for based on id, and then soft delete node, like basically deleting the nodes which basically is deleted, will be set to one, and also is dirty is also should be one. Then get dirty nodes, all the nodes that we basically are gonna try to get from the server, from the database, which will basically a single simple query with a list of all nodes. And then updating nodes as like make sure that it's synced. So we'll basically set the is dirty to true. And then this is just one functionality this basically we can use for testing, just to clear all the database and then re-enter. So this is basically a nodes DAO that we are gonna use. Along with that, we also created one more file, like I said, that is going to be meta sync data DAO. So the sync data DAO should have like a couple functionalities. It is going to be interface, and that is also going to be DAO. Inside that, we should have query. This is basically getting sync metadata. Then we have a last, like updating the last timestamp for the database. This is basically inserting, and last one is going to be updating the sync status. So basically that's something we are doing over here. We just have sync metadata where basically we just have one item in the database, and then this will basically be keep on updating. So that's something we have done over here through room database. So I'm going to say abstract function sync metadata DAO, and that is that. Okay, now inside that, since it's basically remote, I'm going to create one more class and call it sync. That is going to be sync repository, and this is basically going to be the class which will be helping us with, you know handling all the things that we want to do. For example, it should be containing the DAOs. For example, so for DAO we are going to say wall user id string. Then we have nodes DAO, node DAO is node DAO. Then we have a should be part of the constructor. Then we are going to say wall meta sync DAO. Lastly, it's going to be API service is API service. Okay. So these are the things we need. I'm going to make it private as well, so we don't use them outside that. That's one thing. Second thing is that we will be creating a state flow to manage the current state of the, like the current status of the or state of the sync. So I'm going to say private. Instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a shield class, sync state. So that one is sync. There is just one thing, one more that we need, and that is going to be object idle, like this. In case of success, we are not gonna get that. Instead, I'm gonna say sync response. We don't have that. We'll definitely use that. That is going to be data. We don't know. We don't have the sync response, so we can create that. And for that, like I said, we are going to use these three classes. Basically, we will be using these three. This should be the one that's required. So you can just copy it from there, and then over here inside this model, you can just create a file. Call it sync models to be a file, and then inside that you can just place all these variables that we have. So we have the sync response, we have not change, and we have the sync request. So these are the one that we needing. Now we can just use that for this case. And now over here I'm gonna use a state. So I'm gonna say private wall underscore sync state, and let's just import. Okay, though that's that. And then we are gonna say state flow. This means that whenever there is basically a sync, we will be adding or like updating the data based from there. Okay, the next thing would be a functionality that says perform sync, and this perform sync. Now over here we need to do a couple of steps. First, gather sync status, sync data. That's one thing. Then fetch dirty nodes, make a request, and then process response. That's like these are the things that we are gonna do over here. So the first thing is that we need to make sure if there is like no other sync going on right now. If there is any sync that's just going on, we can make sure that we don't do that. So I'm gonna say wall metadata. Metadata is equals to sync metadata. Okay, make sure this is a suspend function. Let's just do one more thing. I think there's just one thing we missed, and I'm gonna say with context dispatchers.io. This will basically make sure that we run it on a IO thread. And now this is basically one thing we did. Now I'm gonna say if metadata is syncing already true, if the syncing value is true, you can just say return with context. Okay, the next thing would be, but if it's not syncing, then what we need to do, I'm going to say sync state dot value is equals to syncing, and then you can update the sync status to true. Now the next thing would be to fetch the local nodes. So I'm going to say wall dirty nodes, and then we are going to get the dirty nodes from the server. Now the nodes are there, so we are going to make sure we create a sync request. That is going to be API service dot create sync request or make sync request. Now basically this sync request is not there, so we need to make sure to implement that. So for that, we need to go to the API service over here. We have login and sign up over here, so we need to do a couple more things. I'm gonna use this as sync endpoint, and we know that it's something as active URL, and then we are gonna do sync. That's one thing. Second thing is that we are getting over here. So I'm going to say suspend function sync result, and this, no, it should be sync request, and that is going to be sync response. These are the two things that we are going to do. Second thing is we definitely need to set this endpoint. Along with that, we also need to add a header, and I'm going to say http sorry headers http headers dot authorization, and that is going to be this auth token. We don't have that auth token over here because we don't have any of that value. So we are gonna say data store manager we have already used that. So basically I'm going to use that same thing over here, and I'm going to say data store manager dot get token. Okay. Okay, so once that is done, we have the body set to request body, and then the response is basically done as this. Okay. Now, if the result is okay, which means the sync is successfully done, in that case, it will return the sync response, else it will return fail. Okay. In that case, it's basically going to be this. And so now let's just use this sync repository like this. And we need to make a request. So I'm going to say wall sync request like this. And this changes is basically we sync request. This is the first thing, the last timestamp we are going to add. Second thing is this changes dirty.map nodes, and this is going to be a node change request because like I said, we the request needs to be node change and it will contain all those that are basically dirty, and then we will be using this as parameter into this. Okay, now once that is done, the next thing would be to process this. So I'm going to use that process. We don't have that functionality, so I'm going to use process sync functionality, and I'm going to use that private suspend as well. Okay. Okay, so if the response is not null, in that case we'll basically be processing that. And what are we doing here? We'll basically do that. Just let me just remove everything. Let's just not make it confusing for us. Okay, so for now, okay, so we will be doing the processing, and when the processing is done, I'm gonna use sync DAO dot update timestamp. And that is, so basically these are the two things that we are doing. We basically be using next, since the sync value will be updated, and also the sync status will be updated. Once that is done, we also need to update our UI. So I'm going to use UI sync status dot value is equals to sync status dot success, and we are going to use this. And we also have to wrap this whole thing inside a exception. So I'm going to say it like a try catch. So we are going to use exception for that case, and then we'll use it. And over here, what we are going to do is that we are going to update that, saying that there was some sort of error. Okay, now that's done. Now this is the process sync response that we need to do, which is really interesting. So inside this, like I said, we have three different one is the applied one, then we will have conflicted one, and then the third one is going to be the changes that we need. So these are the three things that are part of the response. We have applied, conflicts, and changes. So these are the three values that we need to update. So over here, I'm going to say if response dot applied is not empty, what we do is that we mark as sync and we pass all the nodes IDs that are there. So basically all the IDs, a list of IDs that we do. Pretty simple, right? Second one is for the conflict. So let's say if there is any conflict between them, for that we are going to say that if user ID is equals to user ID as well. So that is one for the conflicted one. So basically what we do is that we apply the changes from the server into the to the conflicted nodes, and then we just insert those nodes or update those nodes basically based on that. Okay, that is basically the second one. Third one is going to be the changes that we have from coming from servers. I'm going to say if response dot changes dot is not empty. For that, we are going to do is that we are going to get those or convert them into the node, and then we'll pass those nodes into the server nodes, or like insert it into the database. Now once we do that, I think we should be good. We might like do a couple more things over here, but yeah, I think for now we are good. We should be really good in implementing this. Now basically we need to sync this, and to sync it, we need to make sure that we sync it from a location where we can keep on updating these values, or like get a proper result from there. So the first thing that I can think of is that whenever a user launches the app, user data should be synced. Second location that I can think of is when someone adds data to the server, we wait for like maybe 5 seconds or 6 seconds, and then we sync it so that the server can get an update for the updated nodes. I think that's these are the points we can do. And along with that, we can also give user an option to sync it. So let's say user can click on a button, and then that will basically sync the values for the users. So yeah, that's these are the points I can think of. So how are we gonna do? The first, like I said, in the home view model over here, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create that functionality. So I'm gonna create a function, and we are gonna say function uh, perform sync. Okay, and we need to create that sync repository as well. The sync repository require a couple of things like user ID, nodes DAO, and all these. So let's just get that. We are here, sorry, over here. Now, over here we have these nodes DAO and database manager. We don't even have the no the API service. We need that as well. Now, like I said, what we need to do, I'm gonna say view model scope dot launch wall user ID is equals to data store manager. Okay, get user ID, and then we get that user ID. Then we need to create that sync repository. Like I said, we have nodes database. We need to make sure we can access it, and then we will be fetching the node service and sync service, and that's that. Now we have the sync repository that we can basically use. So we can say perform sync, and along with that, you can also kind of sync repository dot sync state dot collect latest, just to get some sort of an update of what's going on. So like over here you can just create some sort of messages or stuff you want. I think for now we don't need that. We can just have it, but let's just not handle use that. And now this perform sync, like I said, should be done on init every time. Definitely on every time we open the app, we should be doing that. Second one was that we can, let me just use this function like this, and inside the home, when we add item, where is the add node functionality? So once the insertion is done, what we can do, we can say delay for maybe 5 seconds, and then we perform the sync. So after 5 second, every time we add anything, you can, or even for now, let's just not add a delay and just add this perform sync. This will basically, as soon as we add something, we can do that. And the third one was basically having a an option to see that, like a button or something in the screen. Over here we need to create a API server, so I'm going to say view all API service is equals to, I think, let's just not use this like this. Instead you can create the API service over here. HTTP client factory dot client, and you can also use data store manager like this, so that's something you can use. We are also using it in some other places, like over here you can pass it inside that as well, and also in the sign in view, sign up view model as well, you can add that. So now the API service is done. Login, sign up, everything is there. In the home view section, along with the email and notes, like we have this section. I guess we can use one more image for sync. So I basically downloaded a file from the Google, and I'll use that as a parameter, or like as a item. So now let's just add that home scheme. Let's just sync it, and now once you do that, you all you need to do is that you can say view model dot perform sync, which will basically do the sync and all that. Okay. Now let's just test it out. So basically, since we made like all these changes in the database, what I'll have to do is that I'll have to uninstall the app so that we can run it. We can definitely work on some sort of migration later on, but for now I think we can just clear this up from both Android and iOS and we'll run it. So basically what I'm going to do is that I'm going to log in with both same apps, and right now you see that there is this fresh install that I'm going to do. Something is wrong here. Yeah, okay. So now this is basically also important. Now over here, this node thing, you can see like most of the values are there, but we need updated at and also the user ID. These are the two things that we need to change. So for updated at, I'm gonna use system clock.system.now.toString. Okay. And for user ID, we don't have that, so we just definitely need to pass that user ID into that. And over here, I think this was this. We need the user ID. User ID. Okay. So we'll pass that user ID inside this. I'm basically going to use it over here. Now over here, we don't have the user ID. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna use the same functionality I did for this. And I'm gonna use user ID, get user ID. So that way we'll have that, and now we'll pass it over here as a user ID. User ID is equals to user ID dot value. Okay. Now what happens is basically the user ID will be added as a parameter and then it will be shown, and I think that should be more than enough. Let me just run this on Android now, hoping this time it should work and it should run. Oh, come on. Okay, so this is basically dummy screens. It doesn't have to do anything, but yeah, I've just added it for previewing, although I'm not sure if I'm using it right now. Okay. Looks like the app is running. We have the sync functionality as well, but we are not logged in, so we need to log in first. I'm gonna use furkan@gmail.com. 456. We try 456. Okay, the login is done. We have the sync functionality. Nothing is there as well. Now say first note from Android. Okay, save it. Now you see I have this. Now let me just try running it from iOS. I'm gonna create that. Okay. I hope it works on iOS, like it runs on iOS and we don't face any issues. Looks like the build was successful. Compilation is done. Now we are over here. We get over here. We log in with the same email. So I'm going to say furkan@gmail.com. Okay. Now I have successfully logged in. Now I'm hoping that when I click on sync, although it should have synced after a successful login, but it didn't because you know that we haven't implemented that functionality. But I'm hoping when I click on this sync, it should fetch the data. So let's see. Now when I click on that, it did process the sync, but somehow the server didn't give me any of the data. Weird. We should have got the item. Let's just try one more thing. I'm gonna add, this is my first node from iOS. Okay. Okay, something is wrong. Okay, yeah. What's happening is that when we are passing the request, we're sending the request, we're not passing any values into this. You see, like it doesn't pass the changes after a sync. It should be. And I think I know the reason. The reason is that when home screen, when we are basically creating this note over here, we are creating this note, we are not setting that value is dirty to true. It should be true because without that it won't be, uh, synced with the server, and that's why it's happening. So let me just uninstall the app, like I'll basically clear everything. We don't need that on iOS. Where is iOS? Yeah, we also on the iOS will remove that, delete. Let me check if the local database have anything. Nothing. Okay, so we'll rerun everything. We'll be running one from Android, one from iOS. Okay, iOS as well. So yeah, both Android and iOS is running now. Now we need to log in first, so I'm gonna log in from both sides. Let's use Furkan at gmail.com. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Submit. Go back. Gmail.com. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Submit. Go back. Now we have both done. Now let me just add one item from Android. I'm gonna say my first note from Android. Right now, when I save it, you'll see that it's basically added. And now let me just sync it from the iOS side to see if we can get that. Now when I sync it, you'll see I get that note. Now let me add one from iOS side and say my first note from iOS. Okay. And once we do that, we save that. Let me sync it. But for this, I'm not going to sync it like this way. I'm going to close this and I'm going to add this, like reload it. And this time you can see that I got the notes from both Android and iOS. So yeah, this is basically something we can do. We can definitely add some more functionality. For example, in the notes section, we should also have a timestamp for the time which basically we are showing. Also, the sync functionality should only be enabled if the user is logged in. Be without logged in, user should not be requesting the sync functionality. So maybe we can do something is like if the user ID is not there or the token is not there, we shouldn't even show the sync functionality over here. So yeah, that's something I think we can do. It should be very straightforward. Where is that home screen? Yeah, this is the home screen. This is the functionality, and I think over here you can just say email if email value is not empty. Only then we show that image. So this way we know that when the user is signed in, only then we should see it. Now let me just like uninstall the app, or like, yeah, let's just go to app info, clear everything. clear the storage, right? Okay, now let me just, yeah, now when I run it, you see I don't get it because the fix is applied, and when we do change something is like furcon at gmail.com 1 2 3 4 5 6. When I submit that, go back, you see that we have a sync, and now you can sync that as well to get all your notes and all your data. So yes, that's I think pretty much what we did, and I believe this was really cool things to implement. We can definitely add more kind of polishing to this. Like I said, having a delete functionality for this, we can do that. Having like updating this design to having some sort of timestamp or something like that for having it. And yeah, so yeah, that's basically um we can do, and I think we can do it in the next video with just some final touch-ups and all that. And we can fix the design as well for iOS, because in the dark mode in some screen like over here you don't see anything, and we also don't have a back functionality for that as well. So in the next video, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to implement some of the design issues fixes, and we'll also improve some of the UI for this. And I think that's then we should be closing this project and we'll start working on something new. So thank you so much for watching the video. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, happy coding. Bye. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon so you don't forget any update. If you got any question, you can join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Also, for quick updates and tips, you can follow me on Instagram. Until next time, keep learning, keep developing. Bye.